You're gonna recite a full DCF. If you freeze on the tell me about yourself question, you're done. Today, we're going over how to master the behavioral interview to land an investment banking offer. If you want an overview on the technical interviews, check out the video we posted 2 weeks ago. But now let's talk about behaviorals. There are two main situations where you will get asked behavioral questions. Obviously, in an interview, probably 50% of all the questions you get will be behavioral. But you also have to keep in mind coffee chats. They might tell you that they're not evaluating you during coffee chats, but they definitely are. So make sure you show up prepared. I can summarize all behavioral questions into 4 different buckets. First, you have your coffee chat, warm-up, and high-level fit questions, which include questions like walk me through your resume, why banking, and why a particular bank. You need answers for all of these because you'll get them asked a million times. Then you have your situational questions, which are my least favorite. And these are the questions that start with, tell me about a situation where. Then you have your deal walkthroughs where you have to find the deal you've been following. And lastly, trends. This one is more likely to get asked if you're interviewing for a particular industry group, but you could also get asked macroeconomic trends, so you definitely have to be prepared. I'll talk about the first one in this video, and then I will keep releasing videos in the following weeks covering the other topics, so make sure you're subscribed if you're not yet subscribed so you don't miss out on any videos. But now let's get started with the coffee chat and high-level fit questions. In the coffee chats and interviews, there is a 95% chance you get asked 3 types of questions in one way or another. The first one is walk me through your resume to start off, followed by why banking and why our bank. These answers are obviously personal. It depends on what you've done before and what you want, but I'll give you some high-level tips as to how I answer them and how to structure your responses. First, let's go to the classic walk me through your resume. The main mistake I see with this one and feedback that I've actually gotten is that people make this one way too long. They start talking about all the experience they have and all the things they have done and completely lose the interviewer. I like keeping this answer under 60 seconds for this reason. I would mention your past. In my case, I was born in Venezuela but moved to Miami when I was 11 years old. Then I went to Boston College, studied finance and accounting, and worked at KPMG when I graduated from college. There I worked on project managing integrations and separations after an acquisition took place, mainly focusing on financial services firms. I would probably end it there, and you can mention that you're happy to dive into more specific details if the interviewer wants to. Then talk about your present. So for me, after 3 years, I realized I wanted to transition into something more technical and quantitative. I had become a CPA during the time that I worked at KPMG and felt like I wasn't using any of the skills I had studied for. Therefore, I decided to pursue an MBA at Booth because they are known for being very intellectual and strong quantitatively, and it would complement my skill set. Then you can move towards the future and even tee up the why our bank or why banking question. So for example, you could say, I now want to transition into investment banking, preferably a top bank like yours that will help me maximize my potential in the coming years. If you answer it like this, you won't lose your interviewer. You open up the floor for them to ask you about anything they see that's interesting to them in your resume. If you just start talking about your experience, you might be mentioning things that they really don't care about and they'll just tune out. After this question, you will probably get asked the why investment banking question. I would mention a couple of points that really resonate with you. I would also keep this answer under 2 minutes. Again, brevity is key. This question varies person by person, but I'll mention some things that banks generally look for in candidates. First off, they look for candidates that are ambitious and don't mind working long hours. I would highlight a time where you worked on something and were so in the flow that the hours passed by and you didn't even notice. Or you could also mention how you didn't feel challenged at your previous role and wanted something that was more intellectually stimulating. Definitely do not complain at any point about how long you had to stay up to finish something. You also have to be interested in deals. For me, I mentioned that I only worked post-acquisition after the transaction had closed, but I wanted to experience the entire process before. especially the evaluation process and the fact that you work with high-level executives on a day-to-day basis. Finally, banking will offer you the opportunity to learn more than anyone else and will give you a seat at the table with the decision makers of massive corporations. So the learning in banking is unmatched. In summary, you have to paint the picture that banking is the best thing in the world in your eyes. Finally, you can tee up the next question by saying that their bank is the perfect bank for you to achieve all these things you've mentioned. If you successfully tee up the next question, question, they'll likely ask you what specifically you like about their bank. Here I would point out 3 things you like and develop each point. I think the key here is whether you are interviewing at a bulge bracket or in a boutique. If you don't know, the bulge brackets are massive banks. Think of Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and JP Morgan. While boutiques are smaller banks like Evercore, Lazard, and Centerview. Both of them have unique advantages and disadvantages, so you really have to get them right in this question when you're interviewing. For example, bulge brackets have a balance sheet. This basically means that they offer a one-stop shop for clients engaging in M&A. These clients know that the same bank that's providing M&A advice can also provide the financing for the transaction. Secondly, since these banks are massive, they generally also advise in the largest transactions. This is not always true because some boutiques nowadays compete with the largest banks, but I would say on average, the bulges work on larger deals. Lastly, they are a massive corporation, and because of this, they have a very structured training program and mobility. So this is something that might be of interest to you because you can mention that you want to be a career banker, and in a bulge bracket, you have many opportunities to grow and develop, even if you were to lateral across product groups. So these are big advantages for bulge brackets. But the nice thing is that you can also spin these as advantages for boutiques. For example, boutiques generally don't have balance sheets. Therefore, their clients hire them purely for their professional, unbiased advice. You can mention that this is attractive to you because you want to learn from the people that provide the best advice available out there and not just rely on your balance sheet to sell work. Second, even though, like we mentioned, some bulges work on bigger deals, they also have way bigger teams. In boutiques, you have linear deal teams, which means that as a junior, you have a lot more responsibility, and this will lead you to learn a lot more. You won't just focus on one specific portion of a process like you would in a bulge, but you'll probably have your hands on every single step in the process, which will accelerate your learning and help you become a better banker. Lastly, since boutiques are not massive corporations, you will likely have more access to senior bankers and be more than just a number to them. You're more likely to have more senior mentors here because of the mere fact that it's easier to meet them. Both types of investment banks have advantages, so just keep researching them and pick the 3 reasons that resonate the most with you for both bulge brackets and boutiques, depending on who you're interviewing with. So those are the 3 main questions I'll go over this week. And now I'll just give you some high-level, quick tips that you can take away from this video. First, remember to keep the answers short. Don't just yap when giving out answers because you need to keep the interviewer engaged. Second, mention quantitative impacts whenever you're asked about your experience. Third, be structured in your answers to not lose your interviewer. For example, if you're gonna mention 3 things, say, I'm gonna mention 3 things why I wanna do investment banking, and then list them. First, blah, blah, blah. Second, blah, blah, blah. And the last reason why I wanna become an investment banker is blah, blah, blah. That way the interviewer can easily follow what you're saying. And lastly, just be confident and treat it as a conversation with someone that's interested in you and not so much as a robotic interview. These people have a lot of interviews per day and you want them to remember you, so you want them to enjoy the conversation. So that's all for today. This is just part 1 of the behavioral series. If you want to see the next videos in the coming weeks, make sure you subscribe and like the video so you don't miss them. We post videos every Wednesday, so we'll see you next week for the next part in this series. Peace.